Hey guys, what is up? It's Biff, and you are back in the Fearless Mods garage. It's been a minute because I'm trying to sell some cars. The STI and the Lexus. They're on Facebook Marketplace and for sale out here in O'Fallon, Illinois. If you're interested, hit me up. But today we are working again on the 2005 Nissan Titan, and we are going to put a heater core in that thing. I've had this heater core for about 2 years. From Rock Auto, not a sponsor, but it's just super cold outside, and when I sell those cars, that's going to become my daily until the next project car is completed. And in order to do that, I need to be able to fit that entire Titan into the tight side of the garage here. I need to clear some width, I need to clear the entire length, and I need to pull that thing in here with about 1 inch to the front and 1 inch to the rear, and we will be passing through the rear seat to get across the garage. It's going to be an adventure, but by the end of this episode we'll have the heater core installed and you'll know how to do it on your own Nissan Titan. If you're interested in how to, stay tuned. Okay, so we got it cleaned up. We've got the truck pulled in, as you've seen before when we've worked on it. I actually got a pretty good bit of room there. I might be able to squeeze through since there's no trailer hitch. Think skinny thoughts and get through there. This is my guaranteed way through, right through here. And then we are right up to the wall right here with about 1 inch. That's gonna make it interesting getting in here and draining the radiator fluid. But I think we'll be able to do it. Most of the work we're going to be doing is going to be on that front right side, so let's get around there. We're going to be doing most of our work in here, maybe right up front. We got plenty of room there to put a stand to get on. Let's go ahead and see where we begin. I have been just kind of researching to see if there are any tips on where to go. And I ran into a lot of people saying that the heater control valve could be the source of the problem. The interesting thing is there's not much on YouTube or in the interwebs that discuss this canister type. This is supposedly only on the 04s and 05s. Most of them are an electronic type. This clearly has some wires in there to control it, but the entire thing is an electronic plastic case versus this metal canister type. Well, I think what I'm going to do is, this car is 20 years old. I'm probably just going to go ahead and replace the heater core anyway, but chances are we may end up coming back to this as the source of our problem and either see if we can figure out what's broken on it and try to fix it, or get a replacement one either from Nissan or O'Reilly's AutoZone, something like that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just check the fuses over here. I've got some wiring that I put in there years ago for my trailer brakes. I do want to check the fuses, make sure that they're all good, and I'll be using my power probe to check them all. Thank you, Power Probe, for helping us out with this amazing power probe hook. All right, key is on. Now let's start checking some of these babies out. So what's cool about the power probe is you can hear it beeps every time I get my positive power and I see the light come on, and I can even tell you how many volts are coming through there. So it's showing 11.8 battery voltage because I'm connected to the battery, as well as 11.8 volts right here at that terminal. And then when I get to this fuse that isn't powered, it gives me the resistance, 6.53 kilo ohms. And if I do that on both sides, I get the same thing. So I'm guessing that means that fuse is good, it's just not receiving any power right now. And because all of these standoff fuses here, but also the 15 amp right underneath here, they weren't checking good. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull one or more of those fuses out and just check it to see if it looks good. Yeah, and the fuse looks good. I don't think there's anything I can do to it here unless I touch it to a ground. It's gonna be tricky. Tricky. Can't quite reach it. There you go. So I was able to ground one side of it and touch to the other, and it showed me with the green light there that I actually was having a good ground across this. Even though I could see that it was good, that was just to confirm that it is good and to show you how the power probe automatically switches between positive and negative to confirm whether you've got a good or a positive or negative feed. Power probe hook is an awesome tool that has done a great job to simplify the process of going through and checking our fuses, and I showed you a couple of different ways that it can do it very simply. What I'm going to do for this is, as much as I can, use the power tool to remove the Phillips. I mean, there's some old stuff in this glove box. Look at that, an old Garmin. Can't tell you last time I used that, even though my son still does use them because he swears by it. I like knowing all the stuff that Waze tells me is out there ahead of me. One thing I definitely want to check is the cabin air filter, because I know it's never been changed. Right here is the screw that I'm gonna, or the bolt that I'm gonna take out. Out and behind that is where the cabin air filter should be, conveniently placed behind this, so it might be kind of hard to pull this out and get that filter out, but we'll see what we can do. Oh my goodness. I just watched this 3-minute video on what it takes to get this heater core out. We would have to remove the center console, everything in the center radio cluster, the instrument cluster, all the panels underneath, the dash, the speakers, and remove the dash and the dash frame to be able to get to the heater core. Oh, not to mention this entire HVAC system, all pulled out so we can get to the heater core. Maybe there's a reason why I've had that heater core for 2 years and have not installed it. With that bit of knowledge, I think that we might reverse the order that we were going to do this and instead focus on that heater control valve and see if we need to replace that before we go through all of this work to replace a heater core that isn't even leaking into the cabin. That usually is one of your first signs that your heater core is going bad. You start getting antifreeze inside the cabin, and we don't have any of that. But oh my gosh, a one-day job clearly would not be a one-day job to get to this thing. So let's see if we can make it a one-day job and go look at that valve and start there. Okay, change of plans number 3. Factory service manual for this model tells you that valve, after more extensive research, is only on the 2004 and 2005. It tells you you're supposed to disconnect M49, which is a connector that goes into the controllers behind the center console, before you do the checks on the M7 relay, which is right in this area of the vehicle. And the only thing I see here that's blue is that guy right up in there. And I don't know if that's it. It's a L5, it says, for the type of connector. L means blue, 5 is the type of connector. That doesn't look like a relay. It could be. I'm just not 100% sure. And there could be stuff up buried above everything right here. So that's where the connectors are. Tells you to check the voltages and everything and making sure it's working. It then tells you to do different things to see if the valve is operating. But there is a technical service bulletin on it that for this model year, it was having that valve changed out. But from what I can tell, the bulletin said it was only for non-towing models, and mine has the towing package. So it makes it sound like they wouldn't even change it out. You change that out to the new model, electronic one essentially, I guess is what it is. It doesn't even use the electrical connector, and you're supposed to remove that relay at M7, which I don't feel like taking apart the entire dash to get to that connector. And so my plan is to, rather than put a valve in there that could be electronically controlled, but instead is just stuck in there in the open position at all times, is to just use a fitting here to bypass it completely. For now, at least, because then at least I can confirm whether or not the hot water going into my heater core is actually making it there and producing warm air. If it does, then I know that I had a faulty valve and I don't need to replace the heater core. Both of which replacement would require me digging deep into the dash. It's a lot of work. So the lazy side of me says, let's bypass this, see if it works, so we can pinpoint the valve as the problem. And if that's the case, at that point we can decide whether we want to put a new valve in there or not. When it operates normally, when the air conditioning is on, it closes this off so that you don't get hot water into the heater core and hence warm up your conditioned air that you're trying to have be cold. There's a very good thread on this that I'll link below where the guy put in one of the Gates valves. Information on that will be below as well. But he put in a rocker switch where he could manually power the valve open and power the valve closed, so he could essentially choose whether or not he wanted hot water going to the heater core for heat or not going to the heater core when he's in air conditioning. So for now, let's just go ahead and get this thing taken apart and throw in these components, bypass that, start it up, run it, and see if it gets warm. These are nice and cool, and I imagine the water is down nice and low. I assume that these are 3/4. We are simply going to go ahead and cut this guy off and see what we've got. That's dry, so that is good. There we go. Oh, perfect, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and get a 10mm so we can move this out of the way and cut that and hook these up. Those are some really crispy hoses to cut. We'll get that guy out of the way here in a second because he's still attached. Let's throw this on here. And there we go. We'll tighten these guys up. If that works, I'll probably just zip tie it up here to a nut on this. Plunger in there, I can't tell if it's open or closed. It looks like it's open. Anyway, let's get this stuff out of the way and we'll go ahead and fire it up, let it warm up, and see if we have hot air. So like I said, this baby was cold. It was only started up to drive it in, and that was a few hours ago. So we'll go ahead and let it warm up here, see what happens. I do have a little bit of a one of those valve issues, just a little bit, but it is still getting it there eventually. Come on, baby. Guess I shouldn't have moved it. Unfortunately, to fix the flapper valve that redirects airflow and the temperature control valve, I believe, those are all just as involved as replacing the heater core. You've got to take all this out. So we're trying to avoid doing that. I think you should be able to see it. We're well off of the cold now, and it's not warming up, which means maybe our valve was okay. We saw how dry it was. Maybe we're not getting fluid up in there to it. I'll have to maybe retrace the feed line, make sure there's not another valve upstream. Maybe try to crack loose one of those clamps and let the water burp out. Maybe I just got an airlock in it. I want to exhaust all of those options up front where it's easy and quick before we default to having to come into the cockpit to do all this stuff. Regardless, I think this is a good idea for trying to single out whether that valve is good or bad without immediately just going to tearing into this or necessarily spending 140 or however much that replacement valve might be up front. Okay, well, let's go ahead and crack that hose loose and see if we can burp it. These hoses aren't even hot. So I'm thinking our supply hose isn't even getting coolant up to it. I've got this loose. Let's see what happens here. Maybe a mess, maybe not, but yep, there we go. So now we got fluid up there. It's not very warm yet. That could be part of it. Our heater core could be plugged. That could be part of it. So the next thing maybe we do is we end up undoing this, just trying to blow through it or force some air through it and see if we get anything out of it. Okay, we definitely smell like antifreeze now. That's to be expected because we spewed it everywhere. I did go ahead and take out the screw on the cabin out air filter here and pull the cover off. And if you can see it up in there, I'll get some better light, but are there two pieces? No. Yeah? Ooh, it's definitely dirty, but it's not gonna come out with this guy here. I'm gonna try to just go ahead and get this pushed through here and see if we can get this guy out of the way at all. Boy, doesn't go very far. Can we clear it over here? Let me pull some of these screws out and see if we can make more room. Straight. There we go. Fuse block. 2 blue relays on the back of this guy. I think we need to look into that and see if these are the ones that either of the ones that go. They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be over there, but who knows. All right, well, that doesn't give us any more room because this is stretched as far as it can go and it's up against everything, although there is another clip here. There we go. We're out of that one. That gives us any room. Can I come over? Definitely gave me more room. Get this clip bent up a little bit. There we go. Now, what do we got? There's one. Ew. Yeah, that's not too clean. It's full of dirt and grime and hair. We left some pine needles in here. We'll go ahead and pull those guys out for good measure. Add them to the diorama collection. I wonder if it'll slide over. Hey, that helps. And there we go. Kind of a same story. Very plugged. That alone might help us get some better airflow. Seeds and all kinds of stuff in there. That is delicious. All the grains and proteins you need right there in one filter. Some more pine needles up in there we might try to get. Looks open up in the top though. So not a whole lot of extra stuff in there to like a mouse nest or anything like that. Good. Good. We got our filters. Went to O'Reilly's, got MicroGuard 3058. This one's a little pushed in right here, but I think even if it didn't have that little air gap there, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say these would flow air better than these. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and put these in now so we can put the fuse block back on. We did get the last of our pine needles out of there. Closed down all the bad stuff. Traps on top, so we can slide this one in and over. Hey, come on, don't make me bend it up. Oh yeah, it looks nice. Boom. Those have some tabs on top. You just hang it on those tabs, rock it down into place, put this screw back in, which I think I determined to be about a 5/16. And that thing wasn't bad for 20 years, but it's 20 years old and it certainly hasn't been breathing like that for quite some time. So now we'll go ahead and flip all of our stuff back in here. I haven't looked for these yet. We'll do that in a little bit, but let me get all this stuff put back together. And there we go. And snapped in new air filters. There we go. And now we'll just let it heat up and see if we got some heat. Fingers are crossed, because Everything seems to be working properly. Oh, wow. Yeah, this side now is hot, and this side is cold. And we know that that is not plugged. That's interesting. I think we've got a plugged heater core. But why the hot water can make it all the way to here and not cross through my tube is surprising. I think I will undo the return side first and see if we get anything that blasts out of there. There we go, we're back. So we can twist it first, break it loose, because it's been on there for 20 years. There we go. Here goes nothing. You ready for this? A little bit came out from this. Well, now why wouldn't that be spewing hot fluid too? I mean, it's hot, but it's not spewing it. That is weird. Certainly not pushing its way through the heater core, so that's definitely a problem. I think we will let this cool down and then take off this other side and see if we can force some air through there. Or maybe even backwards. I don't know where that hose goes. I'd have to check it out. I'm messing around with this valve and the hot shot, or the power probe hook, which has a hot shot, and I can force juice in. So I've got this little pigtail off of here to a grounded clip. It's going on one pin right here, and I'm leaving the other pin available, making sure that I have space between them. I've got this probe on here that just gives me just a little more small access. Right here on the plus, I'll apply the 12 volts from the battery right here to it. See if I can get up against that top pin without touching the bottom one, and listen to this. So you can hear the power probe applying power, of course, but you can hear the valve moving. So that's great news, because that means we know our valve is good when it's as long as it's getting the right signal. It's opening and closing. These clamps on the end were like solid state, not meant to be taken off. We cut them off right up next to the plastic, so that's as short as you could get them. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the rest of them here, these little clamps, and get the hose off of there, so that we can, once we figure out what's going on with our heater core and hopefully free it up, we can put this back in, because it's operating fine. If you don't have a power probe, I still stand by, at least currently, we haven't tried to put that back on yet, but I do still stand by the fact that putting that pass-through pipe there would be a good way to tell if this was stuck closed. It wouldn't necessarily tell you if it was stuck open or not, and it's spring-loaded open. It's only powered closed. So you don't know which way you're going there. It wouldn't be a fail-safe way to know 100% sure that this is stuck, but it would certainly bypass it and prevent you from spending $140 or whatever the replacement part is to replace it unnecessarily, like I would have in my case, or just as a means of upgrading it. At least you know that it's bypassed. And if you have a means of putting 12 volts of power to it like that and can actuate it and make it work, then all the better. I just used my cutoff wheel and cut through these, broke them loose, and then used a knife to cut these and peel them off. Double check that with that valve open like it is automatically, I can blow through it. And then I stuck a screwdriver in there and just underneath the plunger head, pulled it up into the closed position, and I can't blow through it. So we know that it works electrically, and we know that it is sealing the flow when it's closed and it's flowing when it's open. So this thing's working like a champ, amazingly enough. And now that we've got all this off, when we're ready, we can go ahead and put it back in there and reattach it. We should be able to put those hoses right on over that, as long as they don't crack, and because they're so old, and put this back in. So this part is good. Next, still waiting for it to cool down, but we will pull off the other hose, comes out and goes over there, and it's the one that shoots across and goes down. But I will reach back in there and see if I can just verify that it goes into the block. If it does, I'm not concerned about that being plugged, but I can blow through it from over there just to verify. My main source of concern is that the heater core is plugged, and we will see if perhaps we can back flush it. I took the cover off and double checked that that rear line goes down. It doesn't go into the block back there. It goes into a metal tube, and that metal tube runs underneath the intake all the way up and then angles over right about here over into this block down in here, which is kind of like a water distribution block, and goes straight into it. So if we can blow through this, we'll know that's good. Okay, I don't know if you saw that. My eyes weren't on it, but I heard it. I was back, or forward flushing, I should say, through this. So this isn't plugged, and I was able to force water through this going forward because it was spilling out everywhere. Well, we both saw it, and it's flowing through pretty easily. Why do we have hot water here? And now I feel hot water on this side too. Maybe we had an airlock up top of there. I'm going to plug it back on. And before we do all that other stuff, I'm going to go ahead and clamp that up. I'm going to start it again, and we're going to see if we can get some hot air. That feels warm. That feels warm. And that feels warm. They all feel equal. So that's good. I think we have water flowing through our heater core now. Feels like it might be warming up. But I'll tell you what it is doing is definitely blowing harder. It shows that it's warm, but we'll give it a little help to speed it up. That's definitely a temperature change. Shouldn't ask you to believe my hands. Let's get the pyrometer. Okay, we're on cold right now. It says 76. I don't have the AC on. It says 76. Let's turn the AC on and see what happens. Working like a champ. Now let's see what happens even with the AC on when we go warm. 6.9. I'd like it to be a little warmer than that. And then dropping. So let's kill the AC. Fans on the truck are on, so we know we're warm. Let me go check the temperature of the lines. Yeah, we're still 140 there versus 160 there. So we got 160 coming in and 140 coming out. We would expect the output line to be cooler because the heater core acts as a radiator. It's clearly not blowing hot enough. And what's funny is I felt like it was blowing hotter before we messed with the AC. So I'm wondering if, that says 85. Sure doesn't feel like 85 blowing out of there to me. I'm only getting a couple degrees of temperature change between full cold and full hot. 90 sounds good, but it, again, does not feel like 90. As we kind of troubleshoot our way into the dash and hoping not to have to go full in, next thing I would probably do is go behind here and check to make sure that my mixer dial is working properly. I'm getting good rheostat range out of it so that I get it actually trying to move the valve the way it should, or the flapper, whatever it is. But I feel like that would be our next step. And then if not that, then we probably got to start really digging into it, because it's either going to be the flapper itself. We know that the air director valve has its issues. There we go. 105. That feels much better. That's much more what I'd like to expect. I just don't like that it's taken that long to do it. I shouldn't have to run it for 20 minutes at temperature before the hot water and everything starts to work its way through and get me where I want to be. Let's see what happens now when we run the temperature down. That's pretty dang good. That's pretty good. I'm not going to complain about that. It just takes a minute, and that's with that valve removed. Remember, we're just free flowing through there, so we still have hot water blowing through the heater core, but the AC is kicking. 45 degrees. Now let's see how quick we can come up with the AC off. We're back to 105, so we'll see how long that took. About as long as it took to get cold. The other thing to keep in mind is I'm pointing this pyrometer at the back of the duct in here. I got it right up against here, and I can see the red spot at the back of the duct. So what I'm actually measuring is the temperature of that duct as I cool it all the way down to 47 degrees with the AC, and then take that 47 degree duct and warm it all the way back up to here. I'm at 108. That's pretty dang good. I'm going to say that 109, my hand hurts. It's probably still climbing. That feels pretty good. I think we're going to call that good enough for now to go ahead and button this thing up and say that we have functioning HVAC and do not need to go after the heater core quite at this time. I do think that I'm going to put that valve back in because we have confirmed that it works properly, both mechanically and electrically. So might as well put that thing back in and have this thing with clean cabin air filters back better than it was when we started. That heat feels good. I'm happy with that. I think we're functioning. Some of it is just that it's a 20-year-old truck, and a lot of times you don't sit here going back and forth in the same season to exercise all this stuff. It sits pretty stagnant. In the winter, always on heat. In the summer, always on air conditioning. So exercising these controls might be kind of taking some time to free everything back up to move properly. And keep in mind too, these actuators and doors, they never get serviced. They never get any lubrication or anything to help them out. But that's just something you can't do. I am interested. I'm going to shoot that one more time. Yeah, so there we are, 111. We're good. We're solid. Shutting her off and saying that we can go ahead and button this up. We got the valve installed. We know it works properly mechanically and electrically. We got new cabin air filters in there. We know that the heater is capable of heating up to 110 degrees and that the air conditioner can cool down to 47 degrees. But when I went to run it after putting the valve in, hot water on both sides of the valve, but on the outlet from the heater core, it's just still not getting hot, and the engine was warmed up already. If there's hot water getting up to the valve, it's got to be able to come back down, I would think, even if the thermostat wasn't open, but it should have been open. So still not blowing hot air like I would like it to when I do that. Still blows cold air, can't get it to go hot. I'm thinking what I should have done when I was blowing through the return line and was forcing water through and it came out, I should have still blown through the line that went directly into the heater core while I had that unplugged and seen if I could blast anything out of it or if it seemed like it had restriction. I did not do that. That might be a job for next time. We'll call this one a troubleshooting video with the ultimate goal of not having to tear out that entire dash. So the next time we try to jump into this and see if we can fix it, it'll be a little more troubleshooting, reverse flow that heater core, see if it's got resistance. And if not, then most likely we're going to be having to pull the dash and investigate not only the heater core, but maybe even some of those other rheostats and flapper valves. And while we got it out, it's probably just time to go ahead and replace them, because why go through all that work just to put 20-year-old parts back in that dash and have them fail a year down the road. So we're going to go ahead and call that a wrap for this one. I hope you enjoyed the kind of the walkthrough of how you can troubleshoot these things and just make some discoveries and try to minimize the amount of work that you'll ultimately have to do, or hopefully not at all. Hopefully one of these things solves it whenever you are doing your troubleshooting and you eliminate the need to do the full up job. That's what we try to do here in Fearless Mods, is show you ways that you can tackle a problem, systematically go after it, and hopefully reduce the amount of work you have to do, but certainly not have to pay a dealership to do all that for you, because that would be very expensive. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy Fearless Mods. If you do, please reach down there and like and subscribe, and keep coming back for more content, and we'll catch you again real soon. Take care.